So I need to tell you the story of a little boy. As was the annual habit of this boy's father, each year some part of the house was torn apart, rebuilt, and remodeled. This year it was the den, a small little side room under construction. And for the first time, the father decided the boy was ready to handle a hammer and help pound in nails. So the father brought the boy into the den and carefully showed the boy how to hammer a nail properly. Now, one would think that there is only one way to hammer a nail, but if one were to think that, one would be wrong. The little boy, not trusting his father's hard-won and well-worn wisdom, proceeds to try to hammer the nail every other way he can imagine other than the one that his father has shown him. Sometimes he chokes way up on the hammer and taps that nail in. Other times his grip is in the middle and he's trying to swing. Sometimes he's angling the nail up and down a little, trying to get in. He does light taps. He does big hits. He even tries recreating that scene out of the Dennis the Menace movie, which had just come out that past summer, swinging the hammer with the biggest possible swing to get the nail in just one hit, having to let go of the nail at the last possible second so as not to smash his fingers, and usually dropping the nail as a result. If you're wise, you'll have figured out that the boy did smash his fingers multiple times, and he also bent the nails more times than one could count. Finally, having exhausted all other options, he tried the way his dad had shown him, choked up most of the way on the handle, a straight shot, large swings, but not baseball batter style, just nice large swings evenly on the head of the nail. The method never worked perfectly. The boy lacked a lot of athletic abilities, but it was far more successful than any of the other ideas the boy had tried. Seeing the boy finally using the hammer correctly, the father came up to him and said, "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" Peter was the most hot-headed disciple. He works hard to prove himself over and over again. He's the one who proclaims Jesus as Messiah, and he's also the one who works so hard to control the situation that Jesus calls him Satan. He's the one who refuses to have his feet washed, and then, persuaded, tells Jesus to give him a full-body sponge bath. He's the one who draws his sword and cuts off the ear of the soldier that Jesus then has to heal. He's the one who stays by Jesus' side all the way to the gathering of the high council, only to then deny that he's ever even known Jesus. And when Jesus comes walking on the water, saying, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid," all the other disciples relax from the fear that they were feeling, but Peter must prove that he's not afraid. "I'm not afraid, Jesus. Command me to come to you on the water." And I imagine Jesus sighing at this point, saying to himself, "Oh, Peter, 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 of course you need to prove yourself." That thought isn't a thought of judgment. It's simply acknowledgement of who Peter is. Because Jesus then gladly gives Peter what he needs. "Come here, Peter." So Peter gets out of the boat and starts walking on the water. It's a miracle. You can imagine how giddy he is, like a kid riding the bike for the first time. "Look, Jesus, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it." And then, like that first time on the bike, the water moves under his feet, or a wave splashes his cheek, or the wind whips his hair into his eyes, and all of a sudden, he remembers all those scary and dangerous things around him. I don't know how you forget that there's a massive storm when you're in the middle of a lake, but somehow Peter had forgotten until that exact moment. Now he's not so sure. Should I go back and get in the boat? Do I continue walking to Jesus? Is that wave going to hit me? What happens when the water drops beneath me? What am I doing? People weren't meant to walk on water. And as soon as he's thrown into panic, Jesus is right there, grabbing him by the arm. "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" When we speak of faith, we often talk as if the road to trust is easy, or it's something you either do or you don't do. People of faith always follow Jesus. They hear what Jesus tells them and they act upon God's command. To be a person of faith is not to ask questions or search for answers, but to trust without hesitation. And then Peter hesitates. My experience of faith isn't one of absolute certainty. It's one of constantly exploring all roads and continually finding this one to be the most true. Constantly finding myself like Peter at another point in the gospel saying, "Lord, to whom shall we go? I've looked everywhere else. You have the words of eternal life." It's walking out on the water, but then noticing the storm and finding yourself completely uncertain about what path to take, and yet before you have drowned, Jesus grabs you by the arm and says, "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" I'm certain I've told this story before, but in seminary, after 4 years of hard work and investment, I got to a point in the process called assignment. This is when they finally determine what synod you're going to be working with for your first call. And when assignment came about, my assignment got messed up. Things were looking good, and then suddenly everything went wrong. After years of affirmations, suddenly I was told they don't have a place for me in the church. And not just me, but a couple of my friends also suddenly received bad news. We had stepped out in the water, not even realizing a storm was brewing all around us, and suddenly we didn't know which way to go. And while all this was happening, a wise woman, one of the first women to be ordained as a minister in the ELCA, asked me if she could take me on a walk. And while we were on that walk, she said, "If you need to leave now, no one will hold it against you. But if you stay, I want you to know that there are people here who will support you. You are not alone." It felt like Christ grabbing me by the arm and saying, "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" When I was in Texas, I heard the story of Briarwood Camp. Briarwood was a Lutheran outdoor ministry in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Denton County. At the time of the story, it was about 2006, 2007. Briarwood was a sinking ship, and it was sinking fast. The board was afraid, and for the past decade, they had been reducing their ministry capacity. A pastor from the East Coast was encouraged by the bishop to interview for the position of camp director, even though this guy never imagined himself in outdoor ministry. As he reviewed the paperwork, he realized just how bad things were at this site. Having little sense that he was the right person for the job, but being convinced by the bishop, he decided to go in and be completely honest about their perspectives and what he would do if they hired him. He said, "As I see it, you have two choices. You can continue to limp along for another 10 to 15 years, doing ministry like you've been doing so far. But if you call me, we're not doing that. If you think I'm the right person for the call, here's what's going to happen. We're going to invest all of our resources, and we're going to do 2 or 3 years of really good ministry, and then we're going to close." Imagine being told that here at Mount Zion. Well, the board decided 2 years investing in all they had in something good was better than a decade or two of dragging it along. And so they called him as the camp director. When I was in Texas in 2011, the camp director was celebrating his 5th year at Briarwood, and the ministry was doing more than it had done in a decade. It was as if Jesus grabbed them by the arm and said, "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" But don't take that as me saying that when one trusts Jesus, nothing bad will ever happen. Peter and the apostles faced real hardship in life. My first call, as beautiful as it finally was when I got there, wasn't perfect by any means and came with its own struggles. Briarwood closed last year and was sold this spring to Denton County. I don't think faith is supposed to be about avoiding all the bad things. The psalmist constantly wrestled with the reality that bad things still happen. Some of my favorite hymns are the laments we have in our hymnal around the 700 section. We don't sing them very often, but they speak about God's presence in the time of storms. And I need to know that God is present in the time of storms, because that's faith. Faith is the experience of being saved by God. Whether the storm is as small as the moment when I'm riding my bike for the first time and suddenly realize I don't know how to stop, or it's a boat caught in a literal storm on the Sea of Galilee, or it's losing a job, or it's the death of a dearly beloved. Faith isn't somehow being devoid of questions and struggles. It's finding ourselves saved in the midst of the storm, given direction in the middle of our hesitations, rescued when we are drowning. Faith isn't Peter walking on the water. That was very brave and daring of him. But faith for me, faith was the moment when Jesus grabbed him by the arm and said, "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt?" Because it was that moment, so many times in my life anyway, when faith has come alive. It was when Jesus grabbed me by the arm that I suddenly knew the right direction. It was when Jesus pulled me up that I was suddenly able to trust. It was when Jesus recognized my doubts that they simply washed away. The Bible tells us faith is not our doing. It is a gift from God. It is a gift given to us at the moments when we need it, at the moments when we are lost without it, at the times when we notice the storms and begin to drown. It's at those times that I've felt a powerful arm grab hold of me and heard the words of love spoken to me over and over again. "Oh, my little faith one, why did you doubt? Oh, my little faith one, do not be afraid. Oh, my little faith one, I've got you." And suddenly, in those moments, with Christ's arm around me, my faith becomes so big that it feels like I'm walking on water. May God catch you every time you feel like you're drowning. And in those moments, make your faith bigger than you ever imagined. Amen.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to like if you heard good news and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest message. Peace be with you.